Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a framework that, well, it makes a pretty big promise.
Hmm.
How you can turn desire, that intangible thing, into actual riches.
Exactly. And the source material we're using today, it claims this isn't just theory. It's supposedly laying out, practical methods taken from studying really successful people.
Right, so we're focusing on a specific part,
Yeah.
chapter 7 of this material, which has this title, Organized Planning, the Crystallization of Desire into Action.
That's the one. And this text, it really goes into detail. It covers building plans, working with teams, this mastermind idea leadership, even why people fail, and how to market yourself, all framed within a very particular view of economics.
Okay, so our mission here, for you listening, is to really unpack the key ideas, the strategies, the warnings, the whole perspective that this source puts forward.
Yeah, we want to get to the heart of what this source says you need to do to make things happen so you can, think about it, maybe see how it lines up with your own experience.
It sounds very practical, very step-by-step.
It definitely aims for that. Less abstract, more about the how-to.
All right, let's get into it. The source kicks things off by saying desire is, well, everything. It's the starting point for anything you create or get, the initial spark.
But a spark needs fuel, or maybe a bridge, to become reality. And that bridge, according to this material, is built with plans.
And not just any old plans, right?
Yeah,
It stresses they need to be definite, practical.
very much so. And building these plans hinges on what it calls the mastermind principle. It actually gives 4 key instructions for doing this. First step.
Okay, what's number 1?
You've got to ally yourself with a group. People you need could be a few, could be many, to actually create and then carry out your plan. This alliance is like fundamental.
So assembling the team, the mastermind group. Got it. What's instruction number 2?
Number 2 is crucial. Before you even form this alliance, you need to decide exactly what benefits, what advantages you can offer each member for their help.
Ah, the what's in it for them part.
Exactly. And it makes a point that this isn't just about money. It could be other things. But, the source says no intelligent person is going to work with you forever without getting something valuable back.
Makes sense. Define the mutual benefit up front. What's third?
Third, you have to meet with this group regularly. The source suggests at least twice a week, maybe even more often, specifically to work on and perfect the plan or plans.
Okay, so regular meetings focused on refining the strategy,
Yes.
constantly improving it.
Precisely. And the fourth instruction, this one gets underlined, basically. You absolutely must maintain perfect harmony between yourself and every single member of that group.
Perfect harmony. That sounds demanding.
It does. The text flat out says if you fail here, expect your plan to fail. It claims the mastermind principle just cannot work without that harmony.
So it's deeper than just putting smart people in a room. It's about them clicking, working together without friction.
That seems to be the idea. The rationale given is that, well, big success needs more than just your brain power. It needs flawless plans. And that comes from leveraging the experience, the education, the abilities, the imagination of other minds working together.
The source suggests no single person has everything needed for, like, massive accumulation.
Right. And it also stresses that the plan itself should ideally be a group creation. Or, if you come up with it yourself, it absolutely has to be checked and approved by your mastermind alliance. Their input is vital for making sure it's sound.
Okay, but what happens when a plan fails? Because let's be real, plans fail all the time.
Yes. This is where the source really hammers on persistence. It's incredibly direct about this. If plan A fails, you make plan B.
Just like that.
Just like that. If plan B fails, you make plan C. You keep replacing failed plans with new ones until one actually works. Temporary defeat is not permanent failure. That's the message. It just means the plan wasn't good enough, so you build a better one.
That's a really resilient attitude. It reminds me of the examples the source uses, like Edison.
Exactly. Thomas Edison, who the source says failed 10,000 times with a light bulb. But in this view, that wasn't failure. It was just, 10,000 temporary defeats showing those specific plans weren't right.
Or Henry Ford.
Yeah.
His success wasn't just genius, according to this, but also having a sound plan and, crucially, rebuilding after setbacks.
Right. And it contrasts them with someone like Samuel Insull, who apparently lost a fortune because when his plans were disrupted, he lacked the persistence to start over. Or James J. Hill, who is held up as someone who turned defeat around by creating new plans.
There's a definite theme here.
Oh, yeah. And the mantra it keeps repeating is, a quitter never wins and a winner never quits. It even says you should pick mastermind members who don't take defeat too seriously.
That's interesting. Choose people who can bounce back.
Seems so. And here's another point where the source pushes back on common thinking. It argues money itself doesn't make money.
Really? What does then?
Desire. Desire, when it's transmuted, channeled through principles like this organized planning that's the active agency. Money, it says, is just inert stuff without desire and plans driving it.
Okay, so desire plus planning equals action. From there, the source talks about another path to riches, especially for people starting out without much capital.
Right. Selling personal services or selling ideas. This is presented as how most great fortunes actually began. It's the way in for those without existing property or wealth.
And this leads into a discussion about leaders and followers.
Yes, the source divides people into these two types. It says there's no shame in being a follower, lots of people start there, but it adds there's no credit in staying a follower if you don't have to.
So the idea is to learn while following.
Pretty much. It suggests intelligent followers learn from their leaders, gain knowledge, and often become leaders themselves precisely because they were good followers first. They learned the ropes.
Which naturally leads to what makes a good leader, according to this source.
It lays out 11 major attributes of leadership. These are qualities needed for what it calls leadership by consent, not force.
Okay, let's hear them.
All right, number 1, unwavering courage, based on self-knowledge, knowing your job. 2, self-control. You got to control yourself first. 3, a keen sense of justice. People want fairness.
That makes sense.
4, definiteness of decision. No wishy-washiness. 5, definiteness of plans. Know where you're going. Avoid guesswork. 6, the habit of doing more than paid for. Leaders have to set the example. Do more than they ask of others.
Go the extra mile. Okay.
7, a pleasing personality. Likability, respect seen as essential. 8, sympathy and understanding. Empathy for your followers. 9, mastery of detail. Knowing your field inside out.
Got to know your stuff.
10, willingness to assume full responsibility. That includes taking the blame for your followers' mistakes. And 11, cooperation, getting people to work together willingly, harmoniously.
That's quite a list. It's much more about character and relationship than just being the boss.
Absolutely. And the source draws a very sharp line between this kind of leadership by consent, and leadership by force, which it says relies on, well, force without genuine buy-in.
And it argues one is sustainable and the other isn't.
Exactly. It claims history shows leadership by force doesn't last. It points to figures like Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm, the Tsar, the King of Spain as examples. And it even says business leaders using force are basically slated to go.
So the source envisions a shift in how leadership works, especially in business.
Yes, particularly between employers and employees. It sees the future as being more about mutual cooperation, almost like a partnership.
A partnership based on what?
Based on a fair division of profits and a shared goal of serving the public. The public is seen as the ultimate customer, the real boss.
Interesting. And it identifies some areas needing this new leadership.
It does. It specifically calls out politics, banking, industry, saying it needs leaders focused on people, not just profit religion. The professions like law, medicine, education, arguing for more practical application, less theory, and journalism, which it claims needs to be free from undue influence. These are areas ripe for this new kind of leader, according to the text.
Okay, so we've covered planning, leadership. Now let's flip the coin. What does the source say causes people to fail?
The what not to do section. The source provides a pretty extensive list, 30 major causes of failure, it calls them. It's a lot to go through in detail, but some really stand out.
Give us the highlights. What are the big ones?
Well, number 1 on the list, or near the top, is lack of a well-defined purpose in life. The source claims something like 98% of the failures it analyzed lacked this, just drifting.
Wow, 98%. That's huge.
It's a striking claim. Others include lack of ambition to aim above mediocrity, insufficient education, but it defines education as knowledge applied, not just schooling. Lack of self-discipline, control yourself before you control conditions.
Self-control again.
Yep. Ill health, often linked to controllable things like diet, negative thinking, procrastination, it calls it old man procrastination, always waiting for the right time. Lack of persistence, giving up too easily. Failure, it says, just can't handle persistence.
Persistence again, too.
Yeah.
The flip side of quitting.
Exactly. Also, a negative personality. Lack of controlled sexual urge needs transmutation, apparently. An uncontrolled desire for something for nothing, the gambling instinct, linked to the 29 crash. Lack of a well-defined power of decision, being indecisive, changing your mind too much, seen as procrastination's twin.
That's a lot of potential pitfalls. Covers mindset, Habits, health, decisions.
It really does. The list goes on, covering things like basic fears, wrong choice of mate, overcaution, wrong associates, superstition, wrong job, lack of focus, poor spending habits, lack of enthusiasm, intolerance, intemperance, inability to cooperate. Even things like inheriting wealth without earning it, dishonesty, egotism, guessing instead of thinking, and lack of capital for new businesses.
It's quite the inventory of failure. What does it suggest doing with this list?
It recommends you analyze yourself against it, honestly. Maybe even get someone who knows you well to help, because as the source points out, we often can't see ourselves clearly.
Take a personal inventory, basically. See where your weaknesses might lie.
Precisely. Which ties into the next section, marketing yourself effectively. You need to know your product, yourself, warts and all.
Right. So how does the source suggest you market your personal services, especially if you're just starting out?
It comes back to that idea of the shifting relationship between employer and employee. It's not just about you and the boss anymore.
It's about serving the public together.
That's the frame. The source uses examples from its time to show this shift. Railroad agents becoming polite, streetcar conductors being replaced by courteous bus drivers, banks becoming more welcoming, chain stores focusing on service unlike older grocery clerks. The move from public be damned to we are obligingly at your service.
And it links poor service to bigger economic problems.
It does. It argues the Depression, at least partly, stemmed from a widespread habit of trying to get without giving enough value in quality or quantity of service. It uses the coal industry as an example, claiming greed led to poor service, driving customers away.
So to succeed, you need to focus on giving value. Is there a formula for this?
Yes, the source offers the QQS formula. It says this leads to a permanent market for your services, a good price, and pleasant working conditions.
QQS. What does that stand for?
The first Q is for quality, doing every part of your job efficiently, always trying to get better.
Okay, quality.
The second Q is for quantity, making it a habit to deliver all the service you're capable of and increasing that amount as you improve.
Quality and quantity. What's the S?
The S is for spirit, the habit of having an agreeable, harmonious attitude, conduct that makes people want to cooperate with you.
Quality, quantity, spirit. QQS.
And it emphasizes that spirit, the harmonious conduct part, might be the most important. It mentions Andrew Carnegie believed this strongly.
Carnegie thought harmony was key.
Apparently so. The source suggests a pleasing personality and harmonious spirit can sometimes make up for shortcomings in quality or quantity. It helps you keep opportunities and work well with others.
That's interesting. It's not just about raw output. And the source talks about the value of your skills too, right? Like brain capital.
It does. It frames your income as the return on your brain capital. It even gives a rough way to calculate its value. Multiply your annual income by 16.66. That assumes like a 6% return.
So your skills and knowledge are an asset, just like money.
More desirable, the source argues. It claims brains hold value better in depressions, can't be stolen easily, and that money tends to flow towards competent brains.
Okay, so understanding your value, understanding the QQS formula, this leads into some very specific advice on how to land the exact job you want.
Yes, it moves from general principles to tactical job seeking, building on that self-analysis idea. You need intelligent planning for your job search, too.
What are the steps?
It's quite methodical. 1, decide exactly what job you want. Be specific. Or maybe even identify a need and create the job description yourself.
Know your target.
Okay, 2, choose the specific company or person you want to work for. Don't just apply anywhere. 3, research them thoroughly. Policies, people, advancement paths. Know who you're approaching.
Do your homework.
4, analyze yourself again, but this time match your skills and talents to what that specific employer needs. Plan concrete ways you can deliver value advantages, services, ideas you can bring.
Focus on what you can offer them.
Exactly. 5, forget just looking for a job or an opening. Concentrate on what you can give it. 6, this is a big one. Get someone, maybe an expert writer, to put your qualifications and your plan into a professional, detailed brief.
A brief, like a legal brief.
That's the analogy used. 7, present this brief directly to the person with the authority to hire. The argument is that companies are always looking for people who offer real value.
So this brief is the core of the application.
Yeah.
What goes in it?
The source is pretty detailed. It should be prepared meticulously. Include your education, emphasizing any specialization and why you chose it. Your experience, with details and former employers, references employers, teachers, prominent people, a photograph.
Standard stuff so far.
But here's the key. You must apply for one specific position, state it clearly, and explain exactly why you're qualified for that role. This brief is the application, not just a supplement.
That sounds way more focused than just sending out resumes.
It's presented as a targeted strike, and then there's a radical suggestion.
Oh, what's that?
Offer to work on probation without pay for a set time.
Work for free, really?
The source claims this shows immense confidence and rarely fails to get you a trial. If you know you can deliver value, a trial is all you need. And often it says you'll end up getting paid for that trial period anyway once they see what you can do. It's about confidence, not desperation.
That takes guts. What else? Showing you know their business.
Absolutely critical. Putting that research into the brief demonstrates initiative and real interest. And presentation matters. The brief should look professional, neat. Give your salesman a good suit of clothes, it says. Tailor it for each company. This strong first impression can impact your starting salary.
So while things like agencies or networking are mentioned, this personalized, value-focused brief is presented as the most powerful tool.
That's the core strategy advocated here, yes.
Okay. Now, stepping back from individual strategies, the source also paints a picture of the broader economic landscape, particularly in the U.S. at the time it was written.
Right. It makes a very strong argument about the level of opportunity available in America. It talks about unequaled freedoms, thought, action, education, religion, politics, choosing your work, owning property, choosing where you live, who you marry, equal opportunity, travel, food choices, and the freedom to aim for any station in life.
That tries to make this tangible.
Yes, with specific examples. Like, it describes a typical breakfast you could get near Times Square: coffee from Brazil, tea from China, fruit from South America, wheat from Kansas, eggs from Utah, all for maybe 10 cents per person back then. It uses this to highlight the incredible system making that possible.
And what does it say makes that system possible? What's the miracle behind it?
Capital. But it defines capital very specifically, not just money.
How does it define it?
As highly organized, intelligent groups of people, scientists, educators, business leaders, financiers, lawyers, engineers who plan how to use money and resources effectively. For public benefit, yes, but also profitably for themselves. These groups are called the brains of civilization.
So capital is organized intelligence directing resources.
That's the idea. The breakfast example is used to show how impossible it would be for an individual to gather those things without the massive organized systems, ships, railroads, factories, farms, marketing, distribution, all coordinated by these groups, by capital.
This sounds like a defense of capitalism and capitalists.
It is, quite explicitly. The source argues capitalists are driven by desires to build, achieve, provide useful service, make profits, get rich, and that in doing so, they do provide essential services.
Does it acknowledge criticism?
Oh, yes. It mentions, critics call them predatory interests, Wall Street, and so on. But this source frames that criticism as politically motivated, coming from what it calls soapbox orators, radicals, racketeers, dishonest politicians, and grafting labor leaders.
So we need to be clear, this is the source's specific and rather charged viewpoint we're relaying here.
Absolutely. We're just reporting what the text says. And it says that these critics, including some officials and labor leaders, who the source alleges traded votes for laws to basically take wealth from industry by force of numbers, actually made the Depression worse by attacking the system.
And it contrasts this with what?
With the principle of giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. The source claims some critics just wanted to get without giving, even demanding government relief without any inconvenience.
And this ties into a core concept the source introduces.
Yes, what it calls the law of economics. This is presented as an inescapable natural law, more powerful than any politician or union.
A law of economics. What does it govern?
It keeps the books, basically. It tracks getting versus giving. The source claims you can't bribe it, you can't repeal it. It asserts that Wall Street, big business capital, understand and respect this law, and that's why they, in its view, endure financially.
So this law of economics is the ultimate arbiter in this framework. If you try to get without giving, it catches up to you.
That's exactly the source's argument. It concludes by saying America offers huge opportunity, but you have to be willing to provide useful service in return. The system, governed by this law of economics, doesn't promise something for nothing.
And trying to bend the rules has consequences.
Yes, the source warns that violating this law brings consequences, maybe even for generations. It suggests attempts to take by force or push wages too high or hours too low without corresponding value are ultimately limited by this law. It points to the 1929-1935 Depression as the law of economics collecting its due because, in its view, people had tried to get without giving.
Okay, wow. That's a lot we've covered. From desire to planning with a mastermind, leadership qualities, the many ways to fail, marketing yourself with QQS and a brief, and this whole perspective on capitalism, opportunity, and the law of economics.
It's a comprehensive framework, definitely. We've really tried to unpack the core components as presented in this specific source material. It gives you a particular lens for looking at achievement, action, self-improvement.
And it's presented not just as ideas, but as practical principles for getting results, particularly financial results.
Right, along with that very specific viewpoint on personal responsibility, the power of sticking with it, and how earning works within the system, it describes always emphasizing that exchange of service for reward.
So maybe a final thought for you listening to all this. This source basically says opportunity is laid out before you. Choose what you want, make your plan, and pursue it with relentless persistence.
And it claims the system, capitalistic America as it saw it, gives you the right to aim high, but only if you play by the rules of what it calls the law of economics, which, according to this text, means you have to give useful service for whatever you hope to get it.
So the question to reflect on might be, how does this specific perspective, this framework from this source, challenge or maybe confirm your own views on success, on opportunity, on how things work? What parts of this deep dive resonate? Or maybe what parts make you think, I see that differently? What principles here will you mull over?